This is Target Score Weekly with Joey Slattery and Taylor Allen. Welcome into another edition of Target Score Weekly. I am Joey Slattery. With me, Taylor Allen. As we do every week, well, almost every week, we've been a lot more consistent recently because a lot of stuff is happening. We bring you the CEBL news that you need, and we got an exciting one this week with the local legend himself, Taylor. We've got Jared Ogungbemi-Jackson on the podcast, making his Target Score Weekly debut, and that's about as equally as important as making your CBears debut, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and Jared said the exact same thing. So you couldn't be more accurate on that one, Joey. But of course, we had to have Jared on the show. He's been the talk of, the basketball community in the city since he signed. You can just see how excited people are on social media and people are talking about it and whatnot. So had to have Jared on. Here's a guy who's a 9-year veteran playing overseas, played all over the place. And now he finally has a chance to play home in Winnipeg, be embraced by his family and friends. And again, the basketball community here. So really exciting stuff and great to have a chat with him.
Yeah, really good interview. I think everybody's going to enjoy it. He's just so well-spoken, too. I mean, here's a guy that, not only has he been around as a veteran basketball player, you could tell he's, handled these questions and he's so candid with his answers and shares quite a bit. So you'll enjoy that. That's coming up in just a few minutes. Some big news, though, and you alluded to this, Taylor, when Jared was signed, especially after the Mason Boursier signing and then the drafting of Sean Moran, and that it was getting a little crowded in the backcourt. A lot of people wondered who was coming back. One of the big questions, Glenn Yang. Is he coming back to the Winnipeg CEBLs? Well, as just before we started this podcast, the news is broke. He is not coming back as we expected. He's signed with the Vancouver Bandits. So the fan favorite of last year for many will now be a familiar foe over in Vancouver. But, goes to show how, competitive these positions are. And I'm sure it's not an easy decision to let a guy that you've invested so much time in last year, if you're Mike Taylor, to make that decision. But, that's a guy that was a starter for this team last year. And now he's not even on the roster. He's signing somewhere else. Cause I do think he's good enough to, to play meaningful minutes and as a starter, but it's very, very cluttered here. And there's a lot of talent upgrade this year with the CEBLs. And I think that's bodes well in terms of what to expect for the CEBLs, particularly from the backcourt.
Glenn Yang, he hit the first basket in CEBLs history, didn't he? Yeah, okay.
Yep,
there you go.
Yeah, so he's always going to be a CEBL to some extent. He's always going to be tied to the history of the CEBLs as the first guy to hit a basket as a Winnipeg CEBL for the Winnipeg CEBLs. But he will not be making any more, at least this summer, for the Winnipeg CEBLs. In fact, the CEBLs and fans are going to hope that he doesn't score another one on a Winnipeg court.
Yeah, Glenn Yang, he was one of the nicest players that I encountered last year. And I forget which home game it was specifically, but he finally kind of broke out. I think he scored 15 points or something like that. And you could just see how excited Teddy was for him. Teddy scored 1 million points like he always does, but all Teddy wanted to talk about was Glenn Yang and just how pumped he was for Glenn to finally
have player of the game that game too.
Yeah,
that was a big
there
game.
You go. So the team really liked Glenn. Again, really easy guy to get along with, very nice guy and whatever. But the team did need to upgrade at the point guard position, and they did that in various ways, with Jared Ogungbemi-Jackson being the most obvious one. But good for Glenn to still get another shot here in the league over in Vancouver. Hopefully he makes the most of that opportunity. But I think when you look at last year's team, or the starting lineup at the very least, he was a guy that I kind of didn't really think that they would be bringing back, just because again they did need to upgrade that position. I think he's a great player to come off of the bench. I just think him starting in this league, I don't know, I don't think that's really where he belongs, but hey, we'll see. I mean, he's a guy that has lots of experience playing pro basketball. He's played in Asia and whatnot, some pretty crazy environments over there, so we'll see what he has this summer after what he learned playing in Winnipeg last summer. But yeah, I think it was good for both parties. Glenn gets another chance in Vancouver, and Winnipeg has some new bodies at point guard and ones that might be able to bring a little more to the table for them.
Yeah, and I think he will get that playing time there, and that's probably the most positive things that ever come out of Target Score Weekly. That was the nicest thing I think you've ever said about Glenn Yang. But
Yeah, it was. It was. I
I
mean,
wonder,
again,
I
he's
wonder
a great
how
guy, but
wonder how
that's
much of that played a factor. He's like, you know what, I want to come back to Winnipeg, but those darn jerks on Target Score Weekly, that one guy particularly,
yeah.
that Taylor guy,
I
Teddy's
know.
cousin, he's tough.
I
No,
know.
I doubt that. Glenn, he was, I loved, in terms of my sideline reporting gig, he was, out of many guys, he was great to deal with. Loves the game. I think he was great for the city. I think he got a lot too in terms of what he received in terms of his elevating his exposure and things like that in Winnipeg. So it'll be interesting to see how he fits in Vancouver. I know that's going to be a first too, right, for the Sea Bears that we know of right now, where you're going to be welcoming back a former. A former Sea Bear for the first time, and he was really well liked. So I'm really interested to see what that reaction is going to be when he hits the court for the first time, when he checks in for Vancouver, whether that's as a starter or off the bench, the reception that he'll get from the Winnipeg faithful after last year, because it was a memorable season and he was a instrumental part to that, but no longer is he there. And another crazy thing that happened yesterday, or whatever, not yesterday, would have been Wednesday night of this week, whenever you're watching this podcast. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander asked about when he knew that Chet Holmgren had it in him, had that beast, that dog in him, when did he notice that? And SGA shares the story that the year he was drafted, they were in Toronto playing with a CEBL team, unnamed. Could have been the Scarborough Shooting Stars. It could have been the Brampton Badgers, who were right beside Toronto, and he's from the Mississauga area. So, but he says that he played with a CEBL team where Chet Holmgren had to prove himself, and that was the first time that he was playing with some bigger guys, and he was, throwing out some chirps and some trash talk. And he said that was the moment he realized he was going to be a good NBA player. Pretty nice plug for the CEBL.
Yeah, and I saw
And
Mike
I want to see that.
Morreale. He responded to the video of it. He was pretty pumped, so he noticed right away. So
Is
yeah,
there tape though? I want to see the tape of the scrimmage.
yeah. Probably not, but that would be
Yeah.
pretty cool to see. But yeah, anytime the league can get plugged by a big name NBA talent, especially one like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, currently the best Canadian
Yeah.
basketball player out there and one of the best basketball players in the world, never mind what his passport says. Yeah, that's cool, and that's something to celebrate for sure. It's like the CFL, right? Anytime the CFL gets mentioned in a positive light by someone in the NFL, someone who used to play in the CFL who's moved on or whatever it may be, that always gets people excited, and it's going to be the same thing with this league moving forward. So
And
kudos
I
to Shea. He's in the middle of a playoff basketball series, and he's dropping references to the CEBL. So right
Yeah,
on.
and I wouldn't be shocked if he's one of the guys that one day owns a team in this league too, right? I mean, some of these as Canadian NBA players are really taken nicely to the CEBL, and I think they see it as an opportunity to grow their portfolio outside of basketball. And I would not be surprised if he's one of those guys somewhere down the road. But his OKC Thunder, we talked about it last week, is that age, like they're so young. Is it going to be a factor? Well, early on, not too bad. I'm going to say his OKC is looking pretty poised to start off the playoffs. Personally, I think if any of that's going to come out, it won't be until into the second, maybe third round, if they get that far, before you start seeing that, the wear and tear where the inexperience might come in. But so far, I've been pretty impressed with him. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I was preaching last week that they're so talented, but they need to get that playoff experience. They need to get punched in the face, first, and come back stronger next year. But yeah, I mean, it's still early. It's still
Yeah.
round one. Let's not plan a parade in OKC yet. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's definitely an impressive start. And again, it makes it even more impressive just knowing how most of their team has no playoff experience. So that's really cool. But for me, I think the big takeaway that I have from these first couple of games of round one so far is how awesome is it that Boston lost to Miami in
Say
game two? But
careful,
it wasn't
careful.
actually where I was going, but I just needed to plug that, of course. But for me, Anthony Edwards, I've talked about him so much on this podcast before, and it's no secret that he's a superstar in the making, and his stock is rising by the minute, basically. But you watch what he's doing, going head to head with his childhood hero, Kevin Durant, talking smack, drilling step back threes in his face. This kid is full of confidence, not like in a cocky, like kind of douchebag way, but like in a like I'm gonna be the best player in this league in a year or two or three, and
Yeah.
I'm just letting you guys know it's gonna happen. And here's a little taste of it right now. And KD is like, yeah, you're right. He's just shaking his head. There's nothing he can do. Like he's making him look foolish out there, and it's so much fun to watch. And you watch Anthony Edwards play, the way he moves, his footwork, his release on his shot, his fadeaway. He looks like Michael Jordan. I'm not saying he is
Yeah.
Michael
I've,
Jordan. I'm not saying he's gonna be, but if you just watch the highlights and if you didn't see the jersey he was wearing, you'd be like, man, this guy looks like number 23 on the Chicago Bulls. Like, it's unbelievable.
you're not the first one to say that, right? Like there's been a number of people like prefacing it. Like I'm not saying he's Michael Jordan. And I think the reason why, Taylor, is because he is old school. He like they always say the pendulum swings, right? It was all you talk about that 80s, 90s basketball where it was like, borderline kind of hockey fights at times, right? Like no one would join in a super team. They all wanted to beat the best. Then we got into this phase where, the AAU, as they call it, effect, where, everybody's kind of buddies and it's more of a business. To me, this guy carries himself like one of those old school MJ era guys. Like, I'm here to win. I'm not here to make friends. I think he relished in the opportunity to go up against a childhood hero, or is relishing in it as we speak to go up against his childhood hero. And you know what? For Durant, I kind of like that reaction. That, it's kind of like, man, like almost like torch has been passed. That was me going up against, like, Kobe Bryant, let's say, when I first entered the league and going toe to toe, becoming, top of my game. And now this kid is taking that first major step where now it's not like he's young, like no, like he's a few years in the league and now he's getting his chance in the playoffs. We talked about it last week, how Minnesota's kind of come around. How much has Rudy Gobert improved with a team that can defend better too? Like I feel like he's been elevated because of guys like Ant and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like this is a team, to me, this might be the most exciting team to watch right now. Just because with their matchup, like even though they're favored in terms of the standings, it's a good Phoenix team, mixed of veterans and guys that are stars and like Devin Booker, right? Like these are guys that a team that should be going far, that's had its opportunity and could turn a switch on like that, and he's not letting them do it. Right? They're up 2-0 in that series. It was the time this was recorded. I've been enjoying that one a lot. The Celtics, I won't spend too much time on it. A little concerned with the second loss, but as you said, only round one. It's I think my biggest concern is just where you're seeing the inexperience is head coaching, right? You're seeing Joe Mazzulla going up against Eric Spoelstra, who's just had answers. I don't know if they can carry the momentum, Miami, that they did from 3-point land in game 2 for the rest of the series. But nonetheless, there was no real adjustments, and Boston had to wear that one. New York Knicks, not nicking. They're up 2-0 so far.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and then I think the other one for me, New York, a bit of a surprise. I'm not into that series as much as I thought I would. The Sixers have a lot of drama around them. I thought I'd be really into that one. Not so much. The other one for me has been Denver, LA. To me, and we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but Denver's the favorite, but there's something about how they're beating LA right now. There's something about beating a team like the Lakers with LeBron on it. That kind of solidifies your legacy as a team after winning your championship. Jamal Murray, another Canadian fan of the CEBL, huge game-winning shot the other night. Just kind of showing, doesn't matter, man. We can get in a rock fight. We can blow you out. At the end of the day, we're champions and we're here to defend it. But that's been an interesting series for me anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, no one thought the Lakers were gonna dethrone the Nuggets, especially in a round one series. But yeah, I think it's just going to show. Everyone gives the Lakers so much attention and whatnot, but when you watch them go up against the Nuggets, it's like, okay, yeah, LA, they got a lot of stars and whatnot, but like
Spotlight's on you.
Yeah, but they're not a championship team. Like this team is. They got some talent and whatever, but like Denver is just in a league of their own. It kind of seems like at times. So yeah, that was an awesome shot by Jamal Murray to win game 2. That was really cool to see in their own barn too. But one thing I do want to touch on, I know we're running out of time. Pascal Siakam, and it's not because I'm a Pacers fan and whatever.
No,
but Raptors
that's fair.
I feel a lot of people are kind of taking Pascal for granted these past couple of years, not putting respect on his name. I remember earlier this year, I was talking to someone I met who was a Sixers fan, and this is before Pascal was traded. And I made a comment how Pascal Siakam is better than Tobias Harris. And this guy looked at me like I had six heads. He's like, What are you talking about? Tobias Harris is way better than Pascal Siakam, blah, 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 blah. Really? Look at what Pascal Siakam is doing right now against Milwaukee. Yeah, they're missing Giannis, whatever, but he is putting up buckets. He is. I know he has experience playing in the playoffs, but like my goodness, he's been one of the best players, in the league this week.
So
It's been really fun to watch. And the Pacers got him for nothing. They traded barely anything for him. So Raptors fans, there's been a couple of guys where it's like, oh man, why didn't we trade that guy sooner and get the maximum potential in a trade for that piece? But yeah, Pascal Siakam, it looks like a steal for Indiana right now, assuming he signs with them in the offseason, of course. But yeah, Raptors fans, I'm sure they're cheering for Pascal. He's a hard guy not to like, but it's been cool just to see him, get back to the playoffs.
And he wouldn't have this chance with Toronto. Like that's the other thing too. I think with the Pacers, like this is where he needs to be. To put in perspective, in game 1, he had a double-double. 36 points, one more than the leading scorer in Milwaukee, Damian Lillard. He more than doubled Damian Lillard in rebounds with 13, and then he had 2 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks to go with that. How does he follow that up in game 2? That was a loss, by the way. And then in game 2, 37 and 11 was so another double-double. Again, outscoring Damian Lillard, who's the leading scorer for them, but he outclassed him in every category except for steals, because he had none and Lillard had 1. But I mean, he's averaging a double-double right now. And like I said,
not just a double-double, he's averaging 30 plus points and
30 plus points. Exactly. It's not like a 10 and 10. No, you're right. This is a 30 plus point, 35 plus point double-double type deal. And we talk a lot about Halliburton and stuff like that, who's also really good. But when I talked about the Pacers, like this is what I'm talking about. They've got some weapons in there, and I feel like there's a chance they're just hitting their stride. I don't think they're coming out of the East or anything like that, but don't be shocked if the Pacers make a bit of a run. I think this is a team that's, they have no expectations. I think this is a team that you get through Milwaukee, your confidence is high. You're starting to notice your different options. Pacers are a team to keep an eye on.
Well, Pascal Siakam, he's the first player since Wilt Chamberlain, I think, in like 1967 to score 30 points and 10 rebounds in his first 2 playoff games with the new team, which is insane. An absolute
you're up there with Wilt.
Stat. You do anything, you're up there with Wilt on or off the court. Yeah, that's a very impressive, very impressive stat, very impressive company to be with. So shout out to Pascal for his hot start here. We'll see where it takes him moving forward. But in closing,
and for all we know, these are on court. That's for the comparisons.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. but in closing, before we get to Jared, though, do you want to share what we want to start doing moving forward? To hear some from our diehard Target Score Weekly fans.
Yes, we've had some people that will direct message the like questions and things like that have come up to me in person, and I'm thinking, what, this is a good opportunity maybe to elevate the show. And then Taylor says, well, why don't we start a mailbag? And I think that's a great idea. So we are going to debut starting next week our mailbag. We have an email that I totally forgot about, but it is targetscorepodcast@gmail.com. targetscorepodcast@gmail.com. We also will prompt you on Instagram, Facebook. It doesn't have to be email. It doesn't have to be any specific way. If you have a question or something that you want Taylor and I to discuss on the show, send it our way. We will pick at least one every week, depending on timing. But we want to make this a thing and get you guys more involved. We appreciate everybody listening in. The show's been in constant growth. It seems like every episode just demolishes the last one. So, and that's large in part to the support that we keep doing this. So we'd love to have your say in here. We want to hear from you. Again, targetscorepodcast@gmail.com, or hit either myself, Joey Slattery TV on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Taylor Allen 31 is his handle on all socials. So yeah, reach out to us there. And if we have a guest that week that you want to ask, maybe you could ask their question there too. Who knows? But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Looking forward to starting this. And I think that's a good way to segue into our next segment, the one I know a lot of people are waiting for, the newest Sea Bear, the local legend himself, Jared Ogungbemi-Jackson. First off, thanks for making the time, and I can't really welcome you to Winnipeg. This is home for you. Let's start with that. How much fun is it for you to go through this experience in your hometown?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It still doesn't feel real. Thanks first and foremost for having me on the show. Um, but yeah, it's definitely an exciting time. I think last week, especially with the announcement, it was just a whirlwind of messages and calls from family and friends, and everybody's super excited. So, but I've gotten back to work and started to work out and stuff. So, looking forward to it.
Has anything surprised you, Jared, since you did sign with the Sea Bears? I mean, I know on Instagram, your Instagram was blowing up. You know, everyone's making these stories and whatnot, and you were saying how your phone has been blowing up. But just did anything surprise you about the reaction that the signing has gone?
The biggest surprise I would say has been uh, like restaurants is contacting me and sponsorship things of that nature. I think has been like the biggest surprise. I knew I always felt that once this news came out, not I say this humbly, but I felt like it was going to be a pretty big buzz because I still have, like I said, I have a big family and I have a lot of friends still from the city. I know a lot of people from when I grew up here, and coaches and trainers and different walks of life. So I'm not surprised by the outpour of support and love that was shown. But just kind of like a restaurant here or this sponsorship thing here, like that's kind of surprising. But it says a lot about the city and how they feel about homegrown talents and sports in general. So it's been pretty cool.
That was something that we saw last year too. I mean, a lot of athletes, getting some brand sponsorships or endorsement deals, and things like that with some local, whether it be restaurants, clothing companies, you name it. I mean, I don't know how many lines of player lines came out last year, or at least got elevated last year. But how unique is that for a pro at this level? I mean, I know at the NBA it's kind of expected to an extent, but to get that
Yeah.
kind of support, even financially, where you have businesses, wanting you to endorse their product or their service. I mean, how unique is that in professional basketball outside of the
Uh,
NBA?
it, it's very very unique, especially outside. Like you said in the NBA, it's a given that that's going to happen. But for outside the NBA, I mean, as a player, it just gives you even more intrigue. It gives you more interest. It gives you more credibility. More eyes on you. Like who doesn't want that? And it's just like for me, I always like keep this in mind, like playing professional basketball at any level, at any league is a beautiful opportunity, to say you're a professional, to play in certain leagues, but then to get that kind of love and support and, opportunities to reach out and, do partnerships and things like that. It's an amazing opportunity. And in comparison to NBA, like I've been overseas for 9 years, and I've done 9 seasons in different countries and in good leagues with big arenas and things like that. And those sponsorships are hard, to come by, unless you're the guy in Europe. So in Asia, it's a little bit different. I think those sponsorships they're pretty big on that type of stuff. But to see that from here, from Winnipeg, like already, and I mean, I haven't played a game. I haven't, we even had our training camp. Like it's amazing and it feels good, and I'm just gonna enjoy the process.
So you were telling us last week, Jared, that going to Sea Bears last game or last season, sorry, it was actually really hard on you because people were stopping you in the concourse, saying, "Hey man, like what are you doing in the crowd? Why aren't you playing? Like this team could use you and whatnot." And I'm sure that's kind of fun at first, but when you're getting stopped every two steps and whatever, probably gets a little old and a little, kind of hard too, like you told us before. So just kind of take us through what last summer was like. Obviously, you're seeing the city's electric. We finally got pro basketball back, and people are throwing your name out there, and you're in town, working out and whatever, and you're there, but you're not on the court. So just kind of take us through just what last summer was like. I'm sure it was cool, but also pretty frustrating at the same time.
Yeah, you couldn't even have said it any better. Like initially, once I seen that the Sea Bears were officially gonna have a team, I was just like giddy. I was excited. I was hyped, and I was already starting to message people that I knew from the city, other pros, like, we got to make this happen. Like, I don't know how it's gonna happen with my season overseas, but like I have to play for this team. Like this is where I was born and raised. We have a professional team here. The last time we did, I was like 7 years old. I've been representing Winnipeg, Manitoba as a professional for the last almost 10 years professionally. So in my eyes, I'm like, I don't know how or when it's gonna happen, but I have to put this jersey on and I have to represent my city. So that was my first thought once they first signed, and then or once they first announced that they were gonna have a team. Sorry, And then when I got back in the summertime, at this point I was already in constant communication with Coach Mike Taylor and some of the guys on the team, just figuring out what my situation was going to be. I had a long season in France. We went to the semifinals and lost in 2 games, and coming back home and having to rehab and uh, it's always tough making that decision. When you get back home, typically that's my time off. That's my time with my family. But there's this big thing downtown that's 20 minutes from where I live. You know what I mean? Going on, and it's just like it was hard, And coach told me to come watch some practices, things like that. I was able to see and meet some of the guys and just be in the locker room and be around it. And then, like you said, going to the games. The first game I went with my family. Literally, I flew in. I arrived at like midnight, and the following day I went to one of the games against Edmonton. I remember. So
Oh,
like legit off the plane straight to the game because I was like I don't want to miss it either. It was a good game, and just seeing the atmosphere, seeing how many people came out, the fans, how electric it was, the players, the cohesion they had, and just the environment. I was like, man, like I might have to just make this happen, But obviously, thinking about my career long term and making sure my body is right is obviously always gonna be my priority. And the toughest part, like you said, was literally like, going to the washroom or going to get a snack and 10 people. Oh, you're back in town. Oh, what do you? Oh, why, are you playing? Like, why aren't you playing? Like, oh, go put on a jersey. You can suit up. Like the first day it was cool. It was funny, and then by the second or third game, I was like, man, this is like becoming overwhelming. Like, I wasn't even joking when I mentioned that. Like, not in a negative way, obviously for good reason, but I was like, I can't be in this environment, and I'm used to being a player. I'm used to be able to control what happens and have an impact on the game. So it was tough. It was fun to see from a fan's perspective, but the competitor in me was like, I want to be out there too.
well, Edmonton too. I know like the rivalry naturally comes with Saskatchewan, but I felt last year those games were, way tighter. I know Saskatchewan beat Winnipeg at home in the nationally televised game, but that was great entertainment. But it seemed like there was a real battle there, so that'll be a fun one this year too because they have a lot of guys coming back as well. But speaking to that though, as a veteran, you've gone through this now. Like you said, a decade of playing professional basketball. Now you're coming here playing in the summer. I know you had a little bit more of a break this year, being able to get the release to come in a little bit early, but I mean, how do you prepare yourself? This is new to you too, as a veteran, I guess, to come into a summer league after playing essentially a full season overseas, then coming to play here. I mean, what's been the difference for you, I guess, as you're trying to what would normally be the off season, you're kind of in preseason mode.
I think it's for the most part, my work stays the same as far as how I prepare for games, how I prepare for a season. Um, I think it's just more of like a mental shift and a mindset type thing. Whereas, back when I was in Belarus, knowing that this was going to be a possibility and thinking that I was going to be home a little bit early, I ready to start to shift my mind of, okay, I'm only going to take a few weeks off, watch what I eat, things like that in my time off, and then, start training my body up a little bit earlier than normal, which isn't a bad thing because that way I kind of keep what I built from last summer all the way through the season, opposed to starting from zero again physically and building my way up through the entire summer. So in a way, I'm excited about it just because typically in the summers, I'm training with my trainer and, I'll be doing a lot of individual workout skill development stuff for the most part by myself or with one or two people. And that's how I've been. That's how I'm going to be. I don't like doing big group things for the most part, but to have this opportunity to now, uh, not only get better by playing against great competition in the CEBL, as you can see how many guys are signing, people from top leagues, all the talent. It's a way for me to also improve. So it's a way for me to stay in shape and be sharper, you know what I mean, going into the next season. And then at the same time, it's an honor to play for your city. Like it's really an honor, like I talked to my brother about it, I mean, he's a huge hoop fan as well. And, we just talk about all the possible scenarios of me playing, what can happen, things like that. And we would just say, like, when I'm in Portugal or Spain or France or these teams, obviously I'm giving my all 100%. I train. That's how I am a professional. I'm going to give my 110%. But playing for your own hometown where you were born and raised and you're wearing that on your chest, it adds like a little, like, I'm going to do everything I can to, you know what I mean, to help us win. So I think that's as far as training and things like that, nothing changes. I prepare the same way whether I'm playing in this league or whether I'm playing in a U12 league. So I'm looking forward to it.
You got a lot of stamps in your passport, Jared. Portugal, Spain, Finland, France, Denmark. You've played all over the place. But your last stop, Belarus. I can't say I know many people, if anyone other than yourself, who have even been to Belarus. So what was that experience like? I'm sure lots of your friends and family, that's probably one of the first things that they would always ask you, like, well, what's it like over there? But what
Yeah,
was that experience like? I know it's one of the better leagues in the world, but just
yeah.
playing in Belarus, playing in Russia, it's a Russian league. Just what was that experience like for you?
Um, yeah, I would definitely say from a competitive standpoint, basketball standpoint, it's been the best experience I've had in my career as far as just the level of teams that you're playing against. Like, CSK Moscow, Zenit. These are teams in Russia. Lokomotiv Kuban, and forgetting one other team here. I can't remember. But these are like EuroLeague teams. So like prior to like the sanctions with Russia and all that stuff, these were teams that are playing in the EuroLeague. And for those that are watching that don't know, there's the NBA, and then the next best competition there is in the world is the EuroLeague, which is a combination of the best teams from across Europe. So like my league that I played in now had like four teams that are at that level, and then another like four that are like at one level under the EuroLeague. So like you're legitimately playing against like top notch talent, scouting, game plan, athleticism, skill, IQ, experience, hostile environments. You know what I mean? So it's like for that part of it, I was, it was amazing, and like even in Belarus, the people were super friendly. They had a good fan base there. It's a beautiful city, big buildings, big malls, big shopping centers, big parks. So, I mean, I was away from family. I was far away. Social life wasn't, as the same as it would be maybe in France or Germany and places like that. But as far as the basketball goes, it definitely was an amazing experience. And I definitely wanted to show myself against some of the best talent in the world outside the NBA. And I think I did a good job of that. And I think that could, I can only bring that experience to the team, and, hopefully it'll help us go far.
With that experience and taking into account that saw a few games last year from a fan's perspective, watching from the stands, uh, what's the biggest thing you noticed, I guess, in terms of the CEBL and the level there compared to what you might have played at? And do you think that helped you maybe having a year to see it live as opposed to on tape and kind of take in the atmosphere before actually stepping on the court?
Yeah, I mean, like realistically, watching, you can get a gist of what the league is kind of like. I would say it was a little bit more up tempo. There's a lot of good individual talent, and we got to be real here. Like the training camp is, I believe, maybe a week long, and it's a 20 game season. So everything is pretty compact, right? Whereas in Europe, you're getting 2 months of training camp. You're building so much more chemistry and cohesiveness throughout, the building process of the season. So that's a little bit different in CEBL. So I think it's really about the teams that can come together the quickest, that will give themselves the best chance. And obviously, there's a lot of teams that have a lot of talent as well. So, um, but realistically, I will understand, what it's going to be like once I get on the floor, once we get in training camp, once we get a couple games under our belt. But I'm not going in with a mindset of, okay, let's feel and see, what this is going to be like. For me, basketball is basketball. You have to have a certain mindset and approach to the game, regardless of what level you're playing at. And I think that's what I will do. And I believe my game and my experience will be able to translate and help us do well.
So I feel the local basketball scene has actually changed quite a bit since you were coming up, Jared. I mean, you look at some of the our most recent, big names that have come out of the city. I mean, they go to Ontario, or they go down south to these prep schools and whatever. Then they go to an NCAA program or wherever it may be. But back when you were kind of coming up through Garden City and whatnot, I mean, that wasn't really a thing as much, especially not at least here in Winnipeg. But if you were
Yeah,
coming up now, or these past couple years, do you think your journey or your story would have been different at all?
that's a very good question. I think there's definitely more opportunity now as far as, like you said, there's prep schools, and I think there's a little more eyes on us from other places, and potential D1 options to go to the states to play You got university players getting professional experience. That's just like unheard of. You know what I mean? So when I was coming up, like you said, we had YouTube and that was it. Like, we didn't even have high school mixtapes. I didn't have any clips of my high school championships, provincials, nothing. So how were teams from the states or anything like that gonna get a chance to see me? So not saying that we had it harder or anything like that. I mean, every era is different, and I'm proud of what we've been able to produce, and I'm happy for those guys. But at the same time, now I just feel like these kids got to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented in front of them, as far as having a CEBL team, maybe going to a prep school to give yourself a different chance, because basketball is a big world, but once you start playing across the world, you'll notice how small the basketball world really is, and that's how opportunities really come about. So, I mentioned it when I first signed that a lot of these guys that are not local players, and it's not their fault. They did a great job last season, but they wouldn't truly understand the impact that they're having on the community. That's what I'm talking about. Is when I was coming up, there was no professional team, right? So I was only looking at university players or NBA players on YouTube or some European players on YouTube. Now I can physically go, you know what I mean, watch that. Or if I'm in university, I can potentially play on the team as a professional against other professional players, and what that means for the community of Winnipeg, for basketball as a whole, for this province, it goes without saying. Like, that goes a long, long way. And what we did last year is just the beginning, in my opinion. And they did phenomenal. I'm hoping we can take it even farther this season.
Well, you even take it a step further. I mean, you're a U Sports guy, right? Like, you played in Calgary, and then you look at where the two programs in Winnipeg alone are doing. Both were nationally ranked throughout the year. They both have stacked rosters. Now each team has a guy drafted to the local team. You're like a player away from having a starting five of just Winnipeggers if you wanted
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
Winnipeg Sea Bears, a team that didn't exist, a year and a half ago. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for a local guy, you talked about the opportunity to play in front of your hometown, but what kind of pride do you take in that, being a veteran Winnipeg professional basketball player, being able to share the court with fellow Winnipeggers who aren't there as a voucher? I mean, these are impact
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. A lot of pride. And I feel like, it's our responsibility as, the OGs, or the guys that came before, to pass down the experiences and the opportunities that we've had. So I think it's important for me to be there on that. I really do. I feel like it's important for me to be able to be on this team, and to share my knowledge with the guys, to talk to Sean, and to talk to Simon, and some of the other guys, the local guys, and obviously, of course, the rest of the team. But to really show them as well, like, hey, like, if your path, if your goal is to become a professional, these are some of the things that you should be doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, to push yourself forward. Not that they don't have other resources, but it's best when you can have somebody who's done it and who comes from where you come from and is willing to share that knowledge, which of course I am, because I had people ahead of me where I took knowledge from them as well. So for me, it's a big opportunity to do that, which is why I kind of see, like, again, when I step on the court, I want to win and I want to compete. And I feel like the roster that we've built thus far, has a chance to compete for a championship. That's my focus, 100%. But at the same time, like, I believe this is not an obligation, but in a way it is, for me to kind of give back to the community and hopefully touch the community and touch some of these players and inspire them, and the youth as well. Like, it's important. It's important.
So the Sea Bears, they released that cool marketing video of you the other week where you're at Garden City, your old high school, and you're talking about how you used to, get on the bus at 5 a.m. or whatever it may have been, get to school early, janitors letting you in, becoming good buddies with the janitors, let you in the gym, and you're getting to working on your game before the bell even rings for school that day. And I'm watching that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I feel like such a loser, because when I went to Maples, and this is probably why we never won anything, but our coach he'd open the gym before school, like an hour before school started. I'm like, I'm not waking up early to go do that.
Yeah.
Thing, I'm like, oh man, what was I doing? So now I'm super mad at myself. But anyways, take us through, back then, like, what was that like for you? What was driving you? And just take us through, what you were doing, because obviously not a lot of kids in high school are mature enough and realize how important it is to be doing that stuff and making the sacrifice to hop on a bus first thing in the morning when it's minus 35 outside and it's still dark.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've talked about it a lot of times, and I don't like to be braggadocious about it or anything like that. I just sometimes I share that story just to really let people know my drive and how competitive and how bad I really wanted to be a professional. You have to be realistic. At that point in time, I'm a 5'10", 5'11" guard coming out of Winnipeg. I'm not from Ontario. I'm not from BC. I'm not, from the bigger cities in the country that have a little bit more eyes on us. We don't have scouts like that. There is no AAU. There is no Vegas. There's none of that. So what am I going to do that's going to set myself apart from the rest of the competition in my city and get eyes on me nationally? And, I said, if I want to be one of the best guards in the country, if I want to be the best guard in the city, I have to do more than what everybody else is doing. It's just as simple as that. And I believed in my ability, and I knew if I put in these reps, it's gonna pay off. And the first couple times it's tough. Like, I mean, you wake up at 5 and you're like, man, like I could just roll back over and go to sleep. I'll just have my breakfast. I'll get my ball. And, like this is back when Winnipeg was literally minus 35, minus 40. Like, and I'm waiting for the bus. Like, and just going through that gave me even more determination by the time I got to the school. And I'm like, hey, like, I'm here now. And people may hear the story and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the gym at 6 too. But it's what you do at the gym at 6. It's not just waking up and, okay, I'm here. Okay, that's the first part. But what are you doing? So I was going hard. Like, I'm talking like ball handling, 2 dribbles, full court until, you know what I mean? Like for an hour and a half straight every morning. You know what I mean? Like pushing it, knowing that I have class all day, knowing that I have practice after school, with Phil Penner, my high school coach, who I still love and admire. He helped me a lot. But his practices were intense. Sometimes we'd have 3-hour practices. So I would do that. And then after like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, I'm like, man, my handle feels tighter. I feel quicker. I'm getting to my shot like faster. I'm getting it off. Like, it's not because of what I was doing in practice with everybody else. It's what I was doing outside of practice. You know what I mean? And in my eyes, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not waking up and doing this, somebody else is. Like somebody else in Ontario is, somebody else in Calgary is, and they got more opportunities than I have already. So what is it going to take? You know what I mean? And it worked out, and I carried that same mindset at UFC. Like if you ask people at UFC, it was the same story to the point where it was too much. You know what I mean? It was coaches saying, "Hey, no, you got to get rest. You're putting too much time in. We had a shooting machine. I would go on the shooting machine and put up 1,000 shots, then go to class, then go to practice, do it again over and over. Like that's been my MO. And sometimes it's hurt me because I've done too much work. And as you get older, you got to cut the mileage out and be smart about it. But that's how I've made my career. And I'm hoping that story and that passion and that fire can only inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, well, efficiency being a big one there too, right? Like that's what it sounds like in terms of, it's not necessarily how much, it's how you're doing it when you're doing it, right? And you look at that back then. So when you in high school, would the Jets have been back by then?
No, not when I was in high school.
Yeah,
No.
so you look at it. So you're going into the gym. Not only is there no pro basketball, like there's like not even we don't have the Jets at that point. We have the Bombers and the Gold Eyes here. So even from a professional, being privy to it, to even seeing it, you only had those two in their summer sports. So when you're going in there and you're thinking, I'm going to be pro. I mean, how much does that change now for a kid that has a team in their own backyard, an actual pro basketball team, but also this partnership with U Sports that also wasn't there when you were there. So now
Yeah.
U Sports or Canada West becomes an avenue where you could actually, if you're good enough, fast track your professional development, right? So, I mean, you might go there without that kind of motivation that you can see that's tangible. How big is that now for a kid that's doing what you were doing back then today, who's going to school doing this, but knows that I've got the Sea Bears. I know who Jared Ogungbemi-Jackson is. I've seen him play. Not only the stories now, I'm actually
Yeah.
going to see him play. And he was, huge at Garden City back in the day, whatever. So how big is that for
Yeah.
those kids?
I think it's big on two fronts. It's big like as far as belief, obviously, like and just obtainability. Like if you can physically go watch us play every weekend, maybe get in touch with some of the players, ask for tips. that goes a long way. You know, like you hear about a lot of stories from NBA players or professional athletes, like, oh, who was your motivation? Oh, this player that used to play at the Nuggets or whatever, and I used to go watch him play. Like, we never had that coming up, you know. So that alone is an amazing opportunity for all the youth and all the youth sports guys, 16-year-old guys, you know, 12-year-old kids who are looking to, you know, maybe take their basketball career seriously. It's a huge advantage for them just to be able to watch and see, and then to play. So if like, you know, if you're youth sports and you're playing on a professional team, like there's guys that have, you know, Xavier Moon went to NBA from here. You know, there's been a few guys. You know what I mean? Like this league has eyes on it. So if you come and you perform well, so let's say, you know, like let's say Simon, for instance, you know, he had a pretty solid rookie year. You know, if he plays 2-3 years in CBL before he's done, he could already have a professional contract lined up before he's even done school
Yeah.
if he plays well. I'm not putting any pressure on Simon. Do your thing, enjoy the experience. But I'm just using him as an example. If I had that opportunity coming out of youth sports to play professionally for 2-3 years, you're creating more opportunity in Europe in different leagues for yourself based on the performance that you have. It's like a jump start to your career. When I came out of the CIS, there wasn't a lot of us that were getting opportunities to go from the CIS overseas. You know, there's myself, there was Chris McLaughlin from Victoria, Joel Friesen, Jordan Baker, Johnny Bermerhaskino, if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, sorry, my guy, Caleb Agata. But there wasn't a lot like Phil Scrub. That was our era. But I can name maybe 15 guys tops that went from CIS to overseas was unheard of. It was you're either D1 or you're from Europe or you're somewhere else, right? So now for them to be able to play on a professional team already as a youth sports player, you're already having scouts that are going to be watching these games. So if any, you know, if you perform well, it's only jumpstarting your career as a professional if that's the route you want to take. So honestly, on all fronts, this is just an amazing opportunity. The CEBL, what they've done over the last 5, 6, 7 years is phenomenal. It's amazing. It's first class. The facilities, the leagues, you know, the way it's promoted. It's on TSN. It's on TV. Like it's great what they're doing, and then the opportunity for the players as well. It goes without saying, especially here in Canada for Canada basketball. It's huge.
And they even got a shout out from Shea Gilgeous-Alexander last night.
I've seen that earlier today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Jared, obviously, we all see the highlights of being a pro basketball player overseas, whether it's on social media, YouTube, whatever it may be. And I know you've talked about this a little bit before, but what's the most grueling road trip you've ever experienced in your overseas career? Because you've talked about some of these long bus rides and whatever. I'm sure there's got to be one that really sticks out that was by far the most grueling of them all, I'd imagine.
Had some rough ones. I would say this. I mean, it would be hard for me to say just one, but I would say for sure when I was in Spain and Portugal, when we were in France, when I was in France, we traveled like I want to say between 14 and like 16 hours on bus. So we'd have like wake up in the morning, get on the bus at like 5 a.m., which means you're up at like 4. You get to your destination at the end of the day at like 8. You arrive right off the bus and you go straight to practice, which isn't ideal and doesn't make sense. It was a bad decision by the management there, in my opinion. You go straight to practice. You practice at like 8:30, 9:30. You're done by like 10ish. Then you go to the hotel. You have your food. You watch video. It's like 11:30. You go to sleep. You have a morning shoot around. You have the game, and then you travel right back after the game, 16 hours or 15 hours. So that was in France. That was just like horrendous, like just crazy. And I don't even think that's like good for a human, let alone an athlete. You know what I mean? It's not good for performance, and like risk of injury just increases, that type of stuff. So that, because where I was located in Spain and France, my third and fourth year were like areas in the country where like there's certain travel points that were like super far away. And then this year we had some rough ones where we would leave super early because all of our flights were through Moscow. Like most of our games were in Russia. There's only 2 teams that weren't in Russia this season. And that was us and a team from Kazakhstan, Astana. And let's just say we would have like multiple flights, and sometimes you're leaving right after the game. You're getting back in at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Got to get on a bus, go to a gym, things like that. Like it's not as glamorous as it may seem sometimes, but that's part of the grind. It's not for everybody, that's for sure.
What do you think, Taylor? Is it time?
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
You ready for target time, Jared?
Let's do it.
We'll explain target time. It's
it
the
takes
slowest.
well, Joey. Yeah, I was gonna say it basically takes as long as a road trip that you've experienced in France. About 14 or 16 hours. So there you go.
I was going to say that question was actually a great segue to this segment. We're also running out of recording time because we are cheap at Target Score Weekly and do not want to upgrade our software. So, no, we're actually going to probably take longer than we need to. So sorry about that in advance. Do you want to start this week, Taylor?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's do
Switch
it.
things up a little bit.
Okay. So, first question for you, Jared. What is your favorite NBA play of all time? Whether it was a game-winning shot, a posterizing dunk, what's your favorite NBA play?
I got two that stick out immediately. First one is Michael Jordan. I'm not sure against what team it was. It was against a light blue team. He was on the left-hand side, went for a layup, and he brought it once, twice, 3 times, and flipped it and laid it in. I can't remember what team it was.
Was it? I want to say the Knicks or the Pistons, but
I'm not sure. But it was that sticks out in my mind. And then I would definitely say the Kyrie Irving shot in the finals 2016 to go up against the Warriors. That's just iconic for me.
okay, you talked about, the not so glamorous side of playing pro overseas. You've been to a number of places to play basketball. What was the most wild atmosphere? Like one particular game that you played in where the atmosphere was just beyond comprehension?
2 seasons ago when we were in Bologna for the FIBA Cup semifinal, FIBA Europe Cup semifinal. And I was with Bakken in Denmark, and their atmosphere was crazy. Their fans were really, really into it. Loud, you can't hear anything. It was crazy. That was a good atmosphere. I had one other one but that one sticks out. One of the ones that sticks out the most.
I want to go to Serbia. I don't know if you've ever seen the Serbian basketball.
I was talking to him about that last week. Yeah,
that's on my bucket list. I want to go to a game in Serbia so bad.
Insane. No disrespect to the NBA. NBA is the top league in the world, best league in the world. But as far as fans for Serbia and that, it's not even comparable.
I bet. I also, just because you brought it up, we didn't know which team it was. I just Googled it. It was, and I need to bring this up, the Lakers that he did that against. So
Okay, nice.
I'm very happy to bring that up and make sure we all know what team that was.
Yes, sir.
On a much different note, Jared, how often do people spell your first name wrong? With the 2 R's, that's got to be a curveball at some people.
Too much. Too often. So I'm if you're my friend or if you know me well, I don't want to see 1 R. There's a reason there's 2 R's because I'm different. So too often.
Yeah,
let's get that right this summer. But please, let's get that right this summer.
Okay, so I guess you might have already answered this question, but what is the most basketball crazy country that you've played in? Just where they just get basketball, as their and get the memo of what it's like to be a basketball fan.
I would say Spain.
I feel like that does not surprise me, actually.
Yeah.
I feel like
I was in the second division at the time, so even for the second division, it was pretty crazy. Stadiums were always full. Last year was really good too, though. I can't lie. France is picking up for their fans. You go to these games, you got a lot of people coming out. We had a brand new stadium last year in Orleans. We played the first half in the old arena and the second half in the new arena, and we were getting 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 people at every game.
Wow.
So that was an amazing opportunity last year in Orleans, France. They got some of the best fans from Europe for sure.
That's really cool.
Who is the most famous person's number that you have in your phone?
I wouldn't even say most famous person's number I have on my phone.
That's a really good question, Tim.
Yeah, nobody, really, honestly, nobody on that level, I don't think. I wouldn't say anybody.
Do you have one, Tay?
Well, not because they want me to have their number. It's because I'm a sports reporter and I have to talk to them sometimes. But none of these famous people want me to have their number, so it's not quite as cool. But in all your travels, though, Jared, I'm sure you rubbed shoulders with some people.
I mean, I guess if you want to say, I mean, people don't really know him like that. Daniel Rudez, he played in the NBA for a few years, played on Timberwolves, played on Indiana Pacers. Who else? Played for Orlando Magic as well, so that's my guy.
There you go. That's a good one.
At least it's NBA players, or was. So I'll take that.
The craziest one that I had from my news career, which is probably out of service at this point, Bob Barker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I had to interview him once. I just never got rid. I don't even know if it was actual number, but that's the number that we talked on the phone on before we got the interview. But that's funny. So if you had one player, past or present, who's one player you would love to hoop with?
I'd have to say, if I had to say one, I would say Michael Jordan. You know, obviously.
But sounds like you have a number two.
Yeah, greatest of all time to me. If I had to say multiple, I would definitely say Chris Paul. Like when I was coming up, that's who I really studied. When he was at Wake Forest, that's when he was at Wake Forest, and I was watching the NBA at the time. You know, he became my favorite player, and I tried to model my game after him. So for a long time, I followed him. LeBron for obvious reasons. Kobe to see his mentality. Allen Iverson just to see how skilled, crazy he was. So I'm a basketball fanatic. So
I'll put this to a second version of this question then. We'll take Chris Paul because it seems like that's the one that you really enjoyed modeling your game against. Would you rather play with him or against him?
Against him. Yeah, I want to see him. I want to see what that's like.
That's what I mean. Like, guys, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I think if you're going against a guy like
who
you kind of took inspiration from in your position.
In his prime as well. For real NBA fans, I'm talking before the Clippers. When he was
with, New Orleans.
Prime, so.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff.
CP3 and David West back in the day, very, very underrated duo that does not get really any love. But yeah, no, I hear you. That's a good pick. But if you never played pro basketball, what career would you be doing, do you think?
That one I do not know. I do not know because basketball, for the parents that are watching this, you may agree or disagree with this statement. But in my eyes, in my opinion, there was only plan A, no plan B. For me, plan A was always to become a professional basketball player. That's when I reached probably like age 13, 14. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I'm going to put 150,000% into it. And if it doesn't happen, life is not over. I'll figure it out. You know, that might not be the best advice, but I feel like if you're good at something, if you have skill at something, and you truly deep down believe, and it's something where you go to sleep and like you have visions of it, like to this day, visions of like you being in Europe and like playing in these like, for me, that was always my plan A, and there is no plan B. So I put all of my eggs in that basket, and so far it's turned out well. I don't know if that's great advice, but that's how I look at things. But if not, I definitely think like something in the media. Like I love doing this. I love doing interviews, being in front of a microphone, public speaking in front of a lot of people about whatever the subject may be. Like I'm very comfortable speaking and communicating with people on different levels. So I think something maybe in the media or broadcaster or talking about sports or media management or sports management, something within a team. So
something that keeps you close by, that you're still kind of getting your fix in some
for
way,
sure.
shape, or
something
form.
in the field for sure.
Yeah,
well, the nice thing is with that,
media is okay. Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though, right? With that experience, like it's crazy how much that you learn, like the transferable skills, where you're developing a whole new skill set by practicing the one that you're currently using that'll set you up for success down the road, whether that's in management or media, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very sound and valuable life advice. I think a lot of parents would be happy to hear that.
Yeah.
All right, so you're back home. We asked this to all the local players pretty much. But I'm going to switch it up because normally we ask what your favorite restaurant is in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I want to know what your favorite dish is from all your travels, something that was local to the market you were playing in that is now like a staple for you, that if you can't do without it, or if you can't get it, like something that you would do anything to get here in Canada right now.
Uh,
Are you a foodie?
I'm not well, I love food, but I'm not like, I don't know all the different
You're not
flavors.
going all crazy, but is there something that's like kind of a comfort food now then?
Not really, but I would definitely say when I was in Portugal, that was some of the best food that I ever had. There was something called bacalhau. It's like a deep fried fish that was really, really good. And just like all of the food I had there was just like first class, like top of the line. Like from the meats to the pork to the steak to the chicken, barbecue. Like we had a few sponsored restaurants, and we were able to eat there twice a day. But I was there for 2 years, and that was like some of the best food I've ever had. So any of those meals from when I was in Portugal would be good for me.
Nice. Heading to Portugal, going on my foodie tour.
Yep.
Last one for me, and actually Portugal is a good segue for this. So for those that don't know, Jared, you used to play soccer back in the day, right? Didn't you win a provincial title at GC, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Player of the year too. Yeah, for soccer.
Yeah, okay.
Little Steve Nash to you.
Yeah, I guess so. Good point. Messi or Ronaldo? The real GOAT debate.
I'm a Ronaldo fan, so like my preference, I guess, would be Ronaldo, but I think Messi is he's just something different. I mean, he can score at the same rate and create at the same rate as far as passing goes, and he can dribble through everybody. You know, Ronaldo, I think, is a phenomenal finisher in his prime every year of his career. But Messi is different on that level. The two things I would say is now Messi has a World Cup, which happened in France while I was in France. So I was kind of upset about that. My wife's from France, all of her family's from there, so I was rooting for France. So the World Cup is big, but Ronaldo showed that he could go from the English Premiership, win the championship, go to Spain, win the championship, and then go to Italy and do the same thing, and then also get a Euro. So being able to win in different leagues is a big difference, right? Whereas Messi was at Barcelona pretty much, the majority of his career and never played anywhere else. So
that is so like soccer though, right? Like it's, in every other league, at least in the North American sports for the most part, it's like there's one, right? Where it's like, yeah, you play there and then you have the MJ versus LeBron and you can kind of formulate your argument however you want, but soccer's so difficult. It's insane. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big soccer guy. I can watch like Euro Cup and World Cup.
Love it.
Like that's the one thing, because then I'm watching like the best of the best and I don't need to know anything about the team because country against country is just next level. But
I hope you didn't like Portugal too much though, because picking Messi, I don't know if they're going to welcome you back. So
true.
Oh man, might be in some hot water over there now. We'll see.
Okay, I'll wrap up target time here. My last question. So I asked about what you'd bring to Winnipeg, but when you're not in Winnipeg, what's the one thing you miss about home when you're not here?
Oh, that's easy. Family. I'm a big family guy. Like when I get back in town, sometimes I'll be in town for a month and nobody saw me because I'm just chilling with my family.
Is there like a tradition you guys have when you come home or anything? Is there something like that you're looking forward to, whether it's like a gathering or like mom's cooking, anything like that?
Yeah, sometimes like around Canada Day, sometimes we'll bring the family together from both sides and have a big barbecue or something like that. But for the most part, we just hanging out, watching the games, having good meals, having good laughs. Like that's it. Like when I'm overseas, I'm on FaceTime for hours at a time with my parents, my brother, sister, wife, cousins, things like that. Like I'm a big family person, so that's the biggest thing. I would just say, just being around. If I'm around family, I'm good. So that's my biggest thing.
Awesome, and that wraps up target time. All right, Jared, thank you so much for making the time. I mean, we could have talked to you for hours. I know this is exciting for you.
Yeah.
I know the city is excited. We saw that immediately when they announced it.
Yeah.
But I hope you enjoy it. I know this is going to be a lot different for you for a number of reasons, but I really hope that through it all, you get to enjoy the experience too, because I know once you're on the court, it's all business, but it's going to be something pretty unique, I imagine. So good luck this season.
For sure. Thanks so much, man. Thank you guys for having me. And hopefully, I know I'll see you guys out at the games, and hopefully we'll have more opportunities to talk about things going on during the season. Whenever you guys want, I'm always open to do this. I love doing these types of podcasts and interviews. That's my thing. So I'm there whenever you guys need me.
Well, Taylor, another good interview with Jared Ogungbemi-Jackson, and you can tell he's excited to be here in Winnipeg, man. This is going to be a special season for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see that first game, that first introduction that he has He's going to have his own cheering section, that's for sure. But I think the place is going to absolutely explode, having the hometown kid, another hometown kid in the starting lineup. So that's going to be really cool to see.
Yeah. And hey, if you have questions for guys like Jared or for us, again, we're introducing our mailbag starting next week. So the email targetscorepodcast@gmail.com. You could hit us up on Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, you name it, Rex, whatever it's called now, you name it. Send us what you want. And Taylor, it doesn't just have to be basketball related. It doesn't have to be about the Sea Bears. I mean, we're open to pretty much I'm not going to say everything, but pretty much everything.
Yeah, I'm glad you drew the line somewhere. But yes, ask us whatever. We'll pick at least one question every week. We'll find something interesting. We'll devote a couple of minutes to it, depending on what that question may be. It could be something about our careers. It could be, again, basketball related, something nothing to do with basketball, whatever it may be. Ask away. I think it would just be a fun thing for us to do. And of course, it's just always awesome hearing from you guys as well, because we always appreciate, all the support that we get and whatnot. So, especially support from people who don't even really like basketball or don't even really follow the Sea Bears. Like my aunt, Auntie Jen doesn't know anything about basketball, but she tunes
Auntie Jen?
Auntie Jen.
Auntie Jen. Shout out Auntie Jen.
Shout out Auntie Jen, man. So yeah, to the Auntie Jens, to the diehard basketball fans, appreciate all the love. And we're looking forward to having this mailbag and hearing from all you guys.
Yeah. Like, is Taylor's perfectly coiffed hair his great barber, or is he wearing a toupee? That you can ask, right? Is his foul shot as good as his writing? You can ask that. All of these are on the table. Hit us up, targetscorepodcast@gmail.com. Joey Slattery TV, @Joey Slattery TV on all social channels, @TaylorAllen31 on all social channels. Hit us up. We're looking forward to that. We'll be back next week with another great episode. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. The more support we get, the easier this is. We always appreciate it. Taylor, always a pleasure. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Perfectly coiffed hair. I've never heard that one before. Damn.
It's always on. Always on.
Thanks. I'll take it. Wow.
Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Target Score Weekly Podcast. To stay up to date with Winnipeg Sea Bears and CEBL news, as well as future episode releases, follow Joey and Taylor on Twitter and Instagram, @TaylorAllen31 and @Joey Slattery TV. And wherever you're getting the podcast, be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode.